In the early morning light of 1612, on a narrow island off the coast of Japan, a duel was about to take place that would echo through history for centuries. Two men stood facing each other. One was armed with the most feared blade of his era. The other carried nothing but a piece of wood. Sasaki Kojiro was already a legend, known across Japan as the demon of the western provinces. He wielded a sword so long, it was nicknamed the drying pole. More than 3 feet of steel. 60 confirmed kills. No defeats, no wounds. His reputation alone was enough to make opponents hesitate before drawing breath. Then, there was Miyamoto Musashi. He arrived late, intentionally late. He stepped off a small fishing boat, holding a crude wooden oar he had carved into the shape of a sword during the journey. No armor, no steel, no urgency. Kojiro laughed. Not amused laughter, contemptuous laughter. "You insult me," Kojiro shouted. "You arrive late and unarmed. Fight properly or die like a coward." Musashi did not respond. Kojiro's irritation sharpened into anger. "Say something. Defend yourself." Still nothing. That silence was not hesitation, it was strategy, because in that moment, Kojiro had already lost. Not because Musashi was faster, not because he was stronger, but because Musashi understood something far more dangerous than swordsmanship. The moment you react emotionally, you surrender control. Kojiro was fighting a battle Musashi had never agreed to enter, and when the duel finally began, it ended in a single, decisive strike. History remembers Musashi as the greatest samurai who ever lived, but what most people miss is why he won. It wasn't the wooden sword, it wasn't luck, it was presence. It was restraint. It was the refusal to fight on another man's terms. This same mistake plays out every day, at work, in relationships, online, and families. You argue, you defend, you react, you escalate, and every time you do, you hand power to the other person. You think winning an argument means speaking better, proving more, pushing harder. The samurai knew better. They knew that the person who controls their response controls the outcome. That silence, when chosen deliberately, is not weakness, it is dominance. That the strongest position in any conflict is the one where you are not emotionally invested in winning. This is not about manipulation. This is not about being passive. This is about mastering conflict so completely that conflict collapses on its own. And once you understand this strategy, arguments stop feeling dangerous, provocations lose their grip, other people's emotions stop controlling your behavior. The question is no longer how do I win this argument? The question becomes, why am I fighting at all? Chapter 1. The Awakening. Takeo's Humiliation. Japan, 1603. The Great Wars had ended. The Tokugawa shogunate had brought peace. And with peace came a new kind of battlefield. No longer just steel and blood, but reputation, status, and words. In the dojo of Master Takuan, young samurai were trained not only to fight, but to think. Takeo was 19 years old and considered brilliant. 6 years of disciplined training, philosophy, zen, swordsmanship, debate. Among the students, he was known for one thing above all else. He never lost an argument, and that was the problem. The humiliation came in the marketplace. A merchant handed Takeo his change. 2 silver coins instead of 3. "You owe me another coin," Takeo said. "I gave you 3, the merchant replied. "I counted 2. Then you counted wrong." That single word lit a fuse inside Takeo. His chest tightened, his jaw locked. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm saying you're mistaken." The exchange escalated, voices rose. People gathered, other samurai stopped to watch. Takeo felt the pressure of eyes, of reputation, of pride. He could not back down. "If you do not give me the coin," Takeo said, hand drifting toward his sword, "I will." "Or you'll what?" The merchant interrupted calmly. "Draw your blade over 1 coin, kill an unarmed man. Is that what passes for honor now?" The crowd murmured. Takeo froze. He had been cornered without a single weapon drawn. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Enough." Master Takuan stood behind him, old, still, watching everything. "The coin is not worth your honor," Takuan said. "Walk away." Takeo obeyed. He had no choice. As he left, he heard the whispers. He backed down. Over a coin. Not much of a samurai. That night, sleep would not come. He had been right. The merchant had cheated him, and yet he had lost, publicly, visibly, painfully. The next morning, Takeo confronted Master Takuan in the meditation garden. "You were wrong yesterday," Takuan said before Takeo could speak. "But the merchant cheated me." "Perhaps, but you lost something far more valuable than money." "What did I lose?" "Control." Takuan explained that the moment Takeo argued, he accepted the merchant's battlefield. The merchant set the rules. The merchant framed the conflict. Takeo reacted, and reaction is submission. "So I should let people cheat me?" Takeo asked, anger rising. "No," Takuan replied calmly. "You should learn to win without fighting." He pointed to a scroll hanging on the wall. 2 characters, Mushin. "No mind," Takeo said. "Acting without thought." "In combat," Takuan nodded. "And in argument?" Takeo had no answer. "In argument," Takuan continued, "Mushin means responding without ego, without attachment to being right, without fear of appearing wrong. When you achieve this, arguments collapse, because arguments require 2 people to participate." Takeo felt resistance. Everything he believed about strength was being challenged. "You argue to protect truth," Takuan said, "but really, you argue to protect your self-image. And the moment your identity is at stake, you are no longer free." The word struck deeper than any insult. "Starting tomorrow," Takuan said, "you will train differently. You will be provoked, insulted, disrespected, and your task will be simple." "What task?" "Win without fighting." That night, Takeo sat alone, staring into darkness. If silence was strength, if restraint was power, if winning meant letting go of the need to win, then everything he thought he knew about being a warrior was wrong, and tomorrow the real training would begin. Chapter 2, The Principle. Katsujinkin, the life-giving sword. The next morning, Takeo arrived at the dojo before sunrise. The air was still, the courtyard silent, except for the faint sound of bamboo leaves brushing against one another. He expected sparring, drills, meditation, anything familiar. Instead, Master Takuan gave him a broom. "Clean the outer path," he said. Takeo hesitated. "Is this part of my training?" Takuan met his eyes. "Everything is." As Takeo swept, other students arrived. Some smirked, others whispered. Takeo felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the urge to explain, to justify, to defend his status. He said nothing, he swept. When the path was clean, Takuan called him to the center of the dojo. "Yesterday," Takuan began, "you lost because you believed a samurai's duty is to defeat. That belief is incomplete." He unrolled another scroll. This one bore 3 characters, Katsujin Ken, the life-giving sword. Takeo translated. "Yes," Takuan said, "most men practice Satsujin Ken, the killing sword. They believe strength is the ability to overpower. But the highest form of mastery is Katsujin Ken, the ability to end conflict before it is born." Takeo frowned. "How can a sword give life?" "By not being used," Takuan replied. He explained that in samurai philosophy, the sword was never meant to satisfy ego or prove dominance. It existed to restore balance, to prevent chaos, to protect harmony. Drawing it unnecessarily was a failure of awareness. "The same principle applies to words," Takuan continued. "When you argue, you draw your verbal sword, and once it is drawn, someone must bleed, if not physically, then emotionally." Takeo thought of the merchant, the crowd, the whispers. He had won nothing and lost much. Takuan gestured toward the students gathering in a circle. "Today, you will not train with blades," he said. "You will train with provocation." One of the senior students, Haru, stepped forward. Known for his sharp tongue, Haru bowed politely, then smiled. "So," Haru said loudly, "this is the great Takeo, the one who retreats from merchants and calls it wisdom?" Laughter rippled through the dojo. Takeo's instinct was immediate. Heat surged up his neck. A dozen perfect responses formed in his mind. Clever, cutting, devastating. One sentence could silence Haru forever. Takuan's voice cut in. "Do not respond yet," Haru continued. "Perhaps your sword is as dull as your courage." More laughter. Takeo felt his hands curl into fists. "Tell me," Haru pressed, stepping closer. "What is your excuse today?" Takuan raised one finger. "Now." Takeo took a breath, then another. He looked at Haru, not as an enemy, but as a storm passing through. Finally, he spoke. "You may be right," Takeo said calmly. The laughter stopped. Haru blinked. "What?" "You may be right," Takeo repeated. "I am still learning." Silence fell over the dojo. Haru had prepared for resistance, for denial, for counterattack. He had prepared for battle. He had prepared for everything except agreement. Without opposition, his aggression had nowhere to land. Takuan nodded. "This," he said, "is Katsujinkin." He explained that most arguments survive on friction. Push against someone's claim, and they push harder. Question their identity, and they defend it violently. But when you remove resistance, the force collapses inward. "You did not submit," Takuan told Takeo. "You refused the fight." Haru stepped back, confused. His confidence fractured. "But what if I was wrong?" Haru protested. "What if he isn't a coward?" "Then your words would have required proof," Takuan replied. "And proof requires action, not noise." The lesson settled heavily in Takeo's mind. That afternoon, Takuan expanded the principle. "There are 3 levels of response in conflict," he said. "The first is reaction, emotional, immediate, predictable. This is where most people live. The second is resistance, controlled, but still attached to winning. This is where intelligent people get trapped. The third is non-engagement. This is mastery." He explained that non-engagement is not silence out of fear, but silence out of choice. It is the ability to remain internally unmoved while externally present. "When you react," Takuan said, "you hand the steering wheel to the other person. When you resist, you struggle for it. When you disengage, you realize you never needed to be in the vehicle at all." Takeo began to understand. Winning an argument did not require domination. It required clarity, and clarity dissolves chaos. That evening, Takeo tested the principle outside the dojo. At an inn, another patron mocked his clan, intentionally loud enough to be heard. The old Takeo would have turned, corrected him, escalated. Instead, Takeo finished his tea. When the man noticed he wasn't getting a reaction, he grew louder, more ridiculous, more desperate. Finally, someone else laughed. Not at Takeo, but at the man himself. The argument died without Takeo lifting a finger. For the first time, Takeo felt something unfamiliar, relief. He returned to the dojo and bowed deeply to Master Takuan. "I see it now," he said. "The life-giving sword ends battles by starving them." Takuan smiled faintly. "This is only the principle," he said. "Now you must learn the discipline to apply it when it matters most, when your pride is threatened." He gestured toward another scroll. "The next lesson," Takuan said, "is about timing." Takeo followed his gaze. On the scroll was a single word, "mai." "The space between," Takuan said, "and the most dangerous place in any argument." Chapter 3. Mai, controlling the space between words. The lesson on Mai did not begin with words. It began with distance. At dawn, Master Takuan led Takeo to the far training yard. 2 wooden posts had been driven into the earth, facing each other, just beyond sword's reach. "Stand there," Takuan said, pointing to one post. He indicated the other for himself. They faced one another in silence. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Takeo felt confused, then irritated. His legs stiffened. His mind searched for meaning. "This," Takuan finally said, gesturing between them, "is Mai." "The space between opponents," Takeo replied. "I know this from combat." "You know the word," Takuan corrected. "You do not yet know the danger." He stepped forward half a pace. Takeo's muscles tightened instantly. "You felt that," Takuan said. "Before thought, before logic, before intention." He stepped back again. "In swordsmanship," Takuan continued, "Mai determines life or death. Too far, and nothing happens. Too close, and reaction replaces choice." He paused. "Arguments work the same way." Takeo frowned. "Words have distance, always," Takuan said. "Not physical, psychological." He explained that every argument has an invisible space where control exists. Close that space too quickly by reacting, interrupting, raising your voice, and you surrender awareness. Stay too distant by disengaging entirely when engagement is required, and you lose influence. The master controls the space, Takwon said. The novice crashes into it. To demonstrate, he called 2 students forward and instructed them to debate a trivial matter. The exchange escalated quickly, overlapping speech, rising volume, aggressive posture. "Stop," Takwon commanded. He turned to Takeo. "Where did they lose control?" "When they started talking over each other," Takeo said. "Earlier," Takwon corrected. "They lost it the moment they allowed urgency to shrink the space." Takwon then instructed Takeo to repeat the exercise, but with a single rule: you may only speak after a full breath. The opponent spoke sharply, criticizing Takeo's reasoning, questioning his intelligence. Takeo felt the familiar pull to respond immediately, but he inhaled. Slowly, in that pause, something shifted. The insult lost momentum. The emotional charge weakened. When Takeo finally spoke, his voice was calm, measured, almost detached. The exchange ended quickly, not with victory, but with clarity. Takwon nodded. "Mai is created by pauses," he said. "The pause is where choice lives." He explained that most people fear silence in arguments. They rush to fill it, believing that whoever speaks last or loudest wins. In reality, silence forces the other person to reveal more, to overextend, to expose insecurity, to escalate alone. "Silence," Takwon said, "is a mirror. Most people cannot stand what they see in it." That afternoon, Takeo learned the 3 forms of Mai in conversation. The first was temporal Mai, control of timing, knowing when to speak and, more importantly, when not to. A delayed response often carries more weight than an immediate one. The second was emotional Mai, control of internal distance, remaining unentangled from the other person's emotional state. Anger seeks resonance, deny it resonance, and it collapses. The third was conceptual Mai, control of framing, refusing to accept the premise of the argument itself. Takwon gave an example. "If someone says, 'Why are you always so weak?' he said, and you respond by defending your strength, you have already lost. You accepted their frame." "What should I do instead?" Takeo asked. "Change the space," Takwon replied. "Ask, 'What do you mean by weak?' or say nothing at all." That night, Takeo tested Mai in the real world again. A rival samurai accused him publicly of avoiding confrontation. "Everyone knows you prefer silence to courage," the man said. The crowd waited. Takeo felt the old fire stir, but he breathed. Then he spoke. "Why does my silence disturb you so much?" The question hung in the air. The rival faltered. He stammered, trying to recover. The crowd sensed the imbalance. The space had shifted. Takeo had not attacked. He had repositioned. The argument dissolved. Later, walking back to the dojo, Takeo realized something profound. He was no longer afraid of arguments, not because he knew how to win them, but because he knew how to step outside them. Master Takwon confirmed this insight the following morning. "When someone tries to pull you into conflict," he said, "they are asking you to abandon your center. Your task is not to push back, but to remain where you are." He placed a stone in Takeo's hand. "This is your center," Takwon said. "If you drop it, you are reacting. If you grip it too tightly, you are resisting. If you hold it lightly, you are present." Takeo bowed. "But what if silence is misunderstood?" he asked. "What if people think I am weak?" Takwon smiled. "Let them," he said. "Strength that requires explanation is already in doubt." He gestured toward the final scroll, still rolled and untouched. "The last lesson," Takwon said, "is the most difficult." Takeo felt a quiet anticipation. "This," Takwon continued, "is about ego, and how to dissolve it without losing yourself." On the scroll were 2 characters, written with deliberate simplicity. Mushin, mind without attachment, Takwon said. The state where no argument can touch you. Chapter 4, Mushin, the death of ego in conflict. The scroll remained unopened for 3 days. Master Takwon did not explain Mushin. He did not lecture. He did not test Takeo with arguments or insults. Instead, he assigned him to the most unsettling task yet. "Sit," he said. Takeo sat in the center of the dojo, from sunrise to sunset. No sword, no book, no movement, just sitting. At first, Takeo welcomed the stillness. He had meditated before. He knew how to breathe. He knew how to empty his mind. By midday, the discomfort arrived. His legs burned, his back ached, his thoughts grew louder, not quieter. Memories surfaced. Arguments he had won, arguments he had lost. Moments where he should have spoken, moments where he should have stayed silent. By evening, frustration replaced calm. What is the point of this? His mind demanded. The second day was worse. Students passed by. Some stared, some whispered, one laughed quietly. Takeo felt irritation rise, the reflex to prove himself, to stand, to explain, to remind them who he was. He stayed seated. The third day, something broke. Not his posture, his identity. He realized that every uncomfortable thought shared the same root. The need to be seen a certain way, respected, competent, strong, right, ego. When Master Takuan finally returned, Takeo looked exhausted, but different. "Tell me what Mushin is," Takuan said. Takeo searched for words, then stopped. "It is not empty mind," he said slowly. "It is mind without defense." Takuan's eyes narrowed approvingly. "Say more." "When someone attacks me," Takeo continued, "something inside rushes to protect an image. When that image disappears, there is nothing to defend." Takuan nodded. "Ego," he said, "is the armor you forget you are wearing. In battle, armor is useful. In argument, it is a liability." He explained that most conflicts are not about truth or solutions. They are about identity collisions, two egos fighting to remain intact. When someone insults you, Takuan said, they are not attacking your essence. They are attacking a story, usually their own. Takeo thought of the merchant, of Haru, of the rival samurai. Each had been driven by something deeper than the surface argument: fear, insecurity, desire for control. When you respond from ego, Takuan continued, you feed the conflict. When you respond from Mushin, the conflict starves. He gave Takeo a simple but terrifying rule. From now on, Takuan said, when you are insulted, you may not correct the insult. Takeo felt resistance flare. What if it is false? Especially then, Takuan replied. He explained that correcting insults often strengthens them. It signals that the insult has landed, that it has power. The ego wants to say, that is not who I am, Takuan said. Mushin does not care who it appears to be. The first test came sooner than expected. During training, a visiting swordsman scoffed openly. So this is the dojo that teaches silence instead of strength. All eyes turned to Takeo. The old response surged, sharp, articulate, devastating. He let it pass. Instead, he bowed slightly and said, you are free to believe that, nothing more. The swordsman smirked, waiting for impact. There was none. He tried again. No wonder you avoid real fights. Takeo remained still. The man grew uncomfortable. His voice rose. He spoke more, said less. Eventually, he stopped. The silence exposed him. Later, one of the younger students approached Takeo privately. How did you not react? The student asked. Takeo thought carefully. Because nothing he said required me to exist differently, he replied. Master Takuan overheard and smiled. That, he said, is Mushin. He elaborated that Mushin is not passivity. It is responsiveness without attachment, action without ego, speech without self-defense. When ego dies, Takuan said, presence becomes lethal. He demonstrated with a simple exercise. Two students argued loudly. Takuan stood between them, said nothing, and simply looked at each, fully present, fully attentive. Within moments, their voices softened. The argument lost energy. Presence interrupts ego, Takuan said, because ego requires opposition. Takeo began to see the final shape of the strategy. Katsujinkin taught him to end conflict without striking. Mai taught him to control the space where conflict arises. Mushin removed the internal fuel that kept conflict alive. There was only one lesson left. How do I use this? Takeo asked. When I must speak, when silence is not enough. Takuan walked to the final scroll. This, he said, placing his hand on it, is the sword you draw only when all others fail. He unrolled it, one phrase, written boldly, Heijoshin. The calm, everyday mind, Takuan said. The state where even speech cannot disturb you. He looked directly at Takeo. The final lesson, he said, is how to speak once and end the argument forever. Chapter 5, Heijoshin, Speaking Once, Ending All Conflict Master. Takuan did not raise his voice when he taught Heijoshin. He barely raised it at all. The calm, everyday mind, he said, walking slowly across the dojo. is not something you turn on in conflict. It is something you carry before conflict appears. Takeo listened closely. By now, he understood that the most dangerous lessons were always delivered quietly. Heijoshin, Takuan continued, is what remains when ego is gone, timing is mastered, and restraint is natural. It is not silence. It is not dominance. It is inevitability. He explained that most arguments fail because people speak too much. They pile words on top of insecurity, hoping volume will replace certainty. Heijoshin is the opposite, one statement, perfectly placed. To speak once, Takuan said, you must already be at peace with every possible outcome. He instructed Takeo to observe a dispute between two senior students. The argument dragged on, claims, counterclaims, justifications, looping endlessly. Why does it not end? Takuan asked. Because neither will surrender, Takeo replied. Incorrect, Takuan said. Because neither is willing to lose. Heijoshin required something radical, the willingness to let the argument resolve in any direction, including against you. When you are willing to lose, Takuan said, your words gain weight. Because they are no longer bargaining. He gave Takeo the structure of the Heijoshin statement, simple, almost unsettling in its clarity. First, state reality, not opinion. Second, name consequence, not threat. Third, withdraw emotionally, allowing space for choice. He demonstrated with an example. If a man continues to insult you, Takuan said, you do not argue about respect. You say, if you continue speaking this way, I will leave. Then you leave. No anger, no warning, no debate. The power, Takuan explained, is not in the words, it is in the certainty behind them. Takeo practiced. A student mocked him lightly, testing boundaries. The old Takeo would have ignored it. The newer Takeo might have absorbed it silently. This time, he spoke once. If you wish to train with me, Takeo said evenly, speak respectfully. Otherwise, train elsewhere. Then he waited. The student flushed, hesitated, bowed. The matter ended. Later that evening, Takuan explained why this worked. Heijoshin removes negotiation, he said. Most arguments persist because both sides are negotiating identity. When you state reality and step back, the other person must confront themselves. He warned Takeo of a common mistake. Do not confuse Heijoshin with ultimatums, Takuan said. An ultimatum demands, Heijoshin informs. The difference was subtle and absolute. An ultimatum seeks control, Heijoshin reveals truth. Takeo realized this was why Heijoshin could only be used sparingly. Without Mushin, it would become ego in disguise. Without Mai, it would feel aggressive. Without Katsujinkin, it would escalate rather than end. That night, Takeo faced his most difficult test. The same rival samurai who had accused him days earlier confronted him again, this time privately. You think silence makes you superior, the man said bitterly. Everyone sees through it. Takeo felt no surge of heat, no urge to defend. He spoke once. I do not need you to see me any particular way, he said calmly. If you wish to continue this rivalry, you may. I will not. Then he turned away. The rival stood frozen. There was no hook to grab onto, no argument to continue. For the first time, Takeo saw what Takuan meant by inevitability. The argument didn't end because Takeo won. It ended because there was nothing left to fight. The following morning, Master Takuan gave Takeo his final instruction. Most people learn techniques, he said. You have learned a posture. Heijoshin was not something Takeo would do, it was something he would be. When you carry calm into conflict, Takuan said, your words become rare, and rare words are powerful. Takeo bowed deeply. But what if someone mistakes calm for weakness? He asked one last time. Takuan smiled. Then they will test you, he said, and discover they were wrong. He gestured toward the dojo gate. Your training is complete, Takuan said. Now you must live it. Takeo stepped outside into the morning light. For the first time, he felt no need to prepare arguments in advance, no need to rehearse responses, no need to protect an image. He had learned how to win without fighting. There was only one thing left, to understand why this strategy works everywhere, not just in dojos and duels, but in families, workplaces, relationships, and the modern world. Chapter 6. The Modern Application. Using the samurai strategy today, Takeo never fought another duel, not because he avoided conflict, but because conflict stopped forming around him. Years later, long after Master Takuan had passed, Takeo served as an advisor in matters that had nothing to do with swords, disputes between clans, negotiations over land, personal feuds that threatened to become violent. People sought him out not for his blade, but for his presence. The strategy he carried was invisible, but devastatingly effective, and it works just as well today. The modern world is louder than any marketplace in 1603. Arguments now arrive through screens, meetings, messages, and relationships. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone is armed with opinions and almost no restraint, which is exactly why the samurai strategy still wins. 1. In arguments at work, in offices, arguments rarely sound like arguments. They sound like feedback, discussions, and alignment. But the structure is the same. Ego, fear, status. When someone challenges your idea publicly, the instinct is to defend it immediately, to justify, to overwhelm with data. That's reaction. The samurai response begins with pause, let the space breathe, then apply Mushin, detach your identity from the idea. You are not your proposal. Instead of saying, that's not what I meant, you say, tell me what concern this raises for you. You shift the space. If the challenge continues and clarity is required, use Heijoshin. Given the constraints, this is the direction I'm taking. If there's a better alternative, I'm open to hearing it. No defensiveness, no negotiation of self-worth. The conversation either improves or ends. Either outcome is a win. 2. In relationships, most relationship arguments are not about the stated issue. They're about recognition. I don't feel heard. I don't feel respected. I don't feel safe. Arguing facts in that space is useless. The samurai strategy begins with Katsujinkin, ending the fight before it escalates. Instead of correcting, you reflect. I can see this matters to you. That single sentence often dissolves more conflict than 10 explanations. When emotions rise, maintain slow the pace, lower your volume. Do not chase resolution in the heat of reaction. And when boundaries must be set, use Heijoshin. I care about this conversation, but not when we're speaking like this. Let's return to it later. Then follow through. No threat, no drama, just calm certainty. Over time, people learn how to approach you because they learn what won't work. 3. Online and in public online arguments are the easiest and most pointless to win. They feed entirely on reaction. The samurai response online is simple, non-participation. Silence starves the algorithm of ego. If you must speak, speak once, state reality, withdraw. Most people arguing online are not seeking truth. They are seeking witnesses. Do not be one. 4. When you are truly challenged, there will be moments when silence is misread, when restraint is tested, when someone pushes repeatedly. This is where people break character. The samurai do not. They draw the final sword, Heijoshin, once. Calm, clear, unemotional. This stops here, and then they act accordingly. No explanation afterward, no justification, because the most powerful arguments are not spoken. They are embodied. Why this strategy always works. It works because it attacks the root of conflict, not the surface. Most people fight to protect identity. You refuse to place identity on the battlefield. Most people seek control. You remove yourself as something to control. Most people escalate. You slow everything down. In doing so, you force the other person to confront themselves. And most people are not prepared for that. The final lesson. At the end of his life, Takeo was asked what Master Takuan had truly taught him. He answered simply, I learned that I do not need to win arguments to live in truth. That is the core of the samurai strategy. You do not dominate. You do not submit. You do not persuade. You remain centered. And from that center, conflict has nothing to grab onto. When you stop fighting for victory, you become impossible to defeat.